Laughter echoes across polished mahogany, striking Gabriel's heart. The bottle slipped from Gabriel's fingers, shattering against the marble floor of Theophilus, the most exclusive lounge in the financial district. The amber liquid splashed across his perfectly pressed waiter's uniform. He didn't move for 3 heartbeats, his dark eyes fixed on the scattered glass, while the laughter of his co-workers crescendoed around him. "There he goes again," Roman said, leaning against the bar, his voice carrying just enough to reach the customers seated at nearby tables. "Our holy man can't even hold a bottle right." Gabriel bent to collect the larger shards, his movements deliberate and controlled. The bar was packed with the usual Thursday crowd, investment bankers and corporate lawyers celebrating closed deals and inflated bonuses. He could feel their stares burning into his shaved head, judging the spectacle. "Let me help you with that." Adriel appeared beside him with a broom and dustpan, his voice lowered. "Roman's just being Roman. Don't let him get to you." "I'm fine," Gabriel said, standing with glass fragments cupped carefully in his palms. His vest was stained and would need to be changed before Mr. Lawrence, the owner, noticed. "Thank you." Adriel was the only one among the staff who showed him any kindness. The rest, Roman, Christopher, and Damien, had formed a tight circle that excluded the newest hire, especially after they'd discovered Gabriel's faith. He'd made the mistake of declining their invitation to an after-hours party 3 weeks ago, explaining he had early morning prayers and church commitments. Since then, the mockery had been relentless. Gabriel deposited the glass in the waste bin and moved toward the staff room to change. As he pushed through the swinging door, he heard Roman's voice again. "He's probably going to pray over his uniform now. Exorcise the demon alcohol." More laughter. Gabriel closed his eyes and slipped his hand into his pocket, fingers finding the worn wooden cross his grandmother had given him when he was 12 years old. The smooth edges, worn by years of similar gestures, calmed his racing heart. "You will know them by their fruits," he whispered to himself. The familiar verse steadied him as he removed his stained vest and pulled a fresh one from his locker. 33 minutes later, Gabriel had resumed his duties, carrying a tray of colorful cocktails to a table of young professionals. The night was progressing as usual. The hum of conversation, the clink of glasses, the soft jazz from the trio in the corner. No one would remember the broken bottle within the hour, except for Roman. "Hey, St. Gabriel," Roman called out as they passed each other near the service station. "I saved you some holy water." He gestured to a small glass of clear liquid. "Thought you might want to bless the rest of us sinners." Christopher snickered from behind the bar. "Maybe he can turn it into wine for us." Gabriel reached for his pocket, for the cross, but found only empty fabric. He'd forgotten to transfer it to his new vest. Panic rose in his chest momentarily before he took a deep breath. The cross wasn't magic. It was just a reminder. The strength he needed came from elsewhere. "Roman," he said quietly, "I need to pick up an order for table 12. Roman stepped aside with exaggerated deference. "By all means, Your Holiness. Wouldn't want to keep your congregation waiting." Gabriel moved past him, focusing on the task at hand. 24 years old, and he'd already learned that responding to mockery only fed it. His father had taught him that, along with the patience to endure. The night continued its predictable rhythm until just after 11, when the front door swung open and a group of 7 entered. Gabriel recognized Mr. Lawrence immediately. The owner of Theophilus rarely made appearances this late, but when he did, it was always with important guests. Tonight, he was accompanied by what appeared to be potential investors, men and women in bespoke suits with the unmistakable air of wealth and influence. "Roman, Christopher," Mr. Lawrence called out, "my usual table, please, and send over your best champagne." The staff snapped to attention. Mr. Lawrence was not a man to disappoint. At 47, he had built a small empire of high-end establishments across the city. His success was legendary, as was his temper when his exacting standards weren't met. Gabriel watched as Roman escorted the group to the private alcove in the corner, the best spot in the house. Christopher hurried to prepare the champagne service, while Damien adjusted the lighting to Mr. Lawrence's preferred dimness. "Gabriel," Adriel whispered, appearing at his side, "take these water glasses over. Roman forgot them in his rush to impress." Gabriel nodded, arranging crystal glasses on his tray. As he approached the alcove, he could hear Mr. Lawrence speaking animatedly about expansion plans and profit margins. The guests nodded appreciatively, clearly impressed by the elegant surroundings. "Ah, water," Mr. Lawrence said, barely glancing at Gabriel. "Set them down quickly, boy. I'm about to show everyone the designs for our new rooftop location." Gabriel placed the glasses with practiced precision, one before each guest. When he reached Mr. Lawrence, he noticed the man's face had suddenly flushed deep red, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the carefully controlled temperature of the lounge. "Sir, are you feeling well?" Gabriel asked, setting down the final glass. Mr. Lawrence waved him away. "Just the excitement of the deal. Now, as I was saying about the—" He stopped mid-sentence, his hand flying to his chest. His eyes widened in alarm. "Mr. Lawrence?" Gabriel stepped closer. The owner opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, he clutched at his tie, as if it were strangling him, and toppled sideways out of his chair. For one terrible moment, no one moved. Then chaos erupted. "Call an ambulance!" someone shouted. "Give him space!" another voice commanded. Gabriel dropped to his knees beside the fallen man. Mr. Lawrence's face had gone from red to grey, his breathing laboured and shallow. Gabriel loosened the man's tie and collar, then placed 2 fingers against his neck, feeling for a pulse, rapid, irregular, and weakening. "Heart attack," Gabriel said, loud enough to cut through the panic. "Has anyone called emergency services?" "Lines are down across the district," Damien said, phone in hand. "Storm knocked out the cell towers. I can't get through." "The landline?" Gabriel asked. "Checked it already," Roman replied, his earlier mockery forgotten in the crisis. "It's dead too." "How far is the nearest hospital?" one of the guests asked. 12 blocks, Adriel answered. "In this weather, and with the roads closed for construction on 5th Avenue?" Gabriel made a quick assessment. Mr. Lawrence's condition was deteriorating rapidly. Without immediate intervention, he wouldn't survive long enough for help to arrive. "Clear the table," Gabriel instructed, his voice suddenly carrying an authority that made everyone obey without question. "We need to lay him flat. Christopher, I need a first aid kit if we have one. Adriel, find me clean towels and ice." As the others scrambled to follow his directions, Roman stared at Gabriel in disbelief. "What do you think you're doing? You're just a waiter." "Before I was a waiter, I was a combat medic," Gabriel replied, not taking his eyes off Mr. Lawrence. 3 tours. Now help me get him on the table or stand aside." Roman's jaw dropped, but he moved to help lift the unconscious owner. They laid Mr. Lawrence carefully on the cleared table. Gabriel checked his breathing again. Worse. His pulse was fading. "He's going into cardiac arrest," Gabriel announced. "I need to start CPR. Someone time me." Gabriel positioned his hands over Mr. Lawrence's chest and began compressions, counting under his breath. The crowd formed a circle around them, watches and phones ready to track the intervals. Christopher returned with a dusty first aid kit. "It's not much," he admitted. Gabriel nodded without breaking rhythm. "Check if there's an AED in there or anywhere in the building." "A what?" "Automated external defibrillator. Red box, usually mounted on a wall." Christopher shook his head. "I don't think we have one." Gabriel continued the compressions, sweat forming on his brow. After 30 compressions, he tilted Mr. Lawrence's head back, pinched his nose, and gave 2 rescue breaths. The owner's chest rose slightly, but fell without a voluntary breath. Gabriel resumed compressions. "Adriel, how are we doing on those towels and ice?" "Here," Adriel said, placing them beside the table. "Good. Make an ice pack and place it on his forehead. It might help reduce brain swelling." They worked in grim silence, the minutes stretching painfully. After 4 cycles of CPR, Gabriel checked for a pulse again. "It's there but weak," he said. "We need to stabilize him until we can get professional help." The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the windows. The power flickered once, twice, and then held steady. Everyone in the lounge had gathered around the table now, the earlier social divisions forgotten in the face of the crisis. "What else can we do?" Roman asked, his earlier antagonism replaced by genuine concern. Gabriel looked up at the circle of faces, all turned to him expectantly. The same people who had laughed at him hours earlier now hung on his every word. "Pray," he said simply. Roman blinked in surprise. "What? You asked what else we can do. We can pray," Gabriel repeated. "I'll keep working, but if anyone here is inclined to pray, now would be the time." A strange hush fell over the gathering. Gabriel continued his methodical care, checking vitals, adjusting Mr. Lawrence's position to maximize airflow, all the while maintaining his own silent prayer. To everyone's surprise, it was Christopher who spoke first. I don't really know how to pray properly," he admitted. "But if you do, Gabriel, maybe you could lead us?" Gabriel looked up from his work, meeting Christopher's eyes. There was no mockery there now, only desperation and hope. "I'm not stopping what I'm doing," Gabriel said, "but I can pray aloud if you want to join me." Several heads nodded. Even some of the well-dressed guests looked eager, fear having stripped away pretense. And so, as Gabriel worked to save the life of a man he barely knew, he began to pray in a clear, steady voice that carried through the silent lounge. "Father of mercy, we ask for your healing hand upon Mr. Lawrence now. Give strength to his heart, breath to his lungs, and peace to his spirit. Guide my hands as I work, and if it is your will, restore him to health. We trust in your goodness and submit to your wisdom. Amen." "Amen," echoed through the room, voices joining together. The staff who had mocked Gabriel's faith, the guests who had barely acknowledged his existence as he served them, all unified in this moment of crisis. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the room in stark white for an instant. In that flash, Gabriel saw the scene as if from above. 5 men in identical uniforms gathered around a table. Roman and Christopher stood on one side, Damien and Adriel on the other. And there he was, in the center, his hands working steadily, his shaved head bent in concentration, a stark contrast to the styled hair of his colleagues. The image burned into his mind like a photograph. As if the lightning had signaled a change, Mr. Lawrence suddenly gasped and coughed. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then gradually sharpening as they settled on Gabriel's face. "What happened?" he managed to whisper. Relief washed over the room like a wave. Gabriel checked the owner's pulse again, stronger now, and steadier. "You had a heart attack, sir," Gabriel explained, his voice professional yet gentle. "We've been keeping you stable until we can get you to a hospital." Mr. Lawrence's gaze traveled around the circle of faces, then back to Gabriel. "You saved me?" Before Gabriel could answer, Roman stepped forward. "He did, sir. Gabriel knew exactly what to do. He's been working on you for 40 minutes without stopping." Mr. Lawrence tried to sit up, but Gabriel placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. "Please don't move yet, sir. Your heart has been through a major trauma." The owner relaxed back, too weak to argue. "Thank you," he whispered. "The storm's letting up," Adriel announced from the window. "And I just got a signal on my phone. Ambulance is on its way." A collective sigh of relief passed through the gathering. As the immediate danger receded, people began to step back, the circle widening. The guests murmured among themselves, and the staff exchanged glances filled with new understanding. Gabriel remained at Mr. Lawrence's side, monitoring his condition. He was aware of Roman hovering nearby, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot. "Gabriel," Roman finally said, his voice low. I want to apologize." Gabriel looked up, surprised. "The way we've been treating you," Roman continued, "the jokes, the mockery, it was cruel and I'm sorry." Gabriel studied the man's face, searching for sincerity and finding it. "Thank you," he said simply. "Apology accepted." Roman nodded, clearly wanting to say more, but unable to find the words. Christopher approached next, head bowed. I'm sorry too, and thank you for teaching us how to pray back there. I haven't done that since I was a child. Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind us what matters, Gabriel replied. Mr. Lawrence, still lying on the table but more alert now, cleared his throat weakly. I'd like to hear more about this praying business too. Seems like I owe someone upstairs a thank you. Gabriel smiled. When you're stronger, sir, we can talk then. The wail of an ambulance siren penetrated the night, growing louder as it approached the lounge. Adriel rushed to prop open the doors, while Damien went out with a flashlight to guide the paramedics in. Within minutes, professional medical personnel had taken over, transferring Mr. Lawrence to a stretcher and attaching monitors and an IV. They asked Gabriel detailed questions about the owner's condition and the care he'd provided, nodding approvingly at his answers. You did everything right, the lead paramedic told him. Without your intervention, he wouldn't have made it until we got here. As they prepared to transport Mr. Lawrence to the hospital, the owner reached out and grasped Gabriel's hand. I want you to come see me tomorrow, he said, his voice stronger than before. We have things to discuss. Gabriel nodded. I'll be there, sir. The paramedics wheeled Mr. Lawrence out into the night, leaving behind a lounge transformed. The guests had departed during the commotion, leaving only the staff to face the aftermath. I suppose we should clean up and close for the night, Adriel suggested. The others murmured agreement, moving to their usual closing tasks with subdued efficiency. Gabriel headed to the staff room to retrieve his things, suddenly exhausted as the adrenaline drained from his system. He was surprised to find his locker already open and his belongings laid out neatly on the bench. Beside them sat his wooden cross, which he'd thought lost during the chaos. I found it on the floor near where you were serving earlier, Damien said from the doorway. I recognized it as yours. Gabriel picked up the cross, its familiar weight comforting in his palm. Thank you. It means a lot to me. Damien nodded, hesitated, then asked, Where did you learn all that? The medical stuff and the praying. The medical training came from the army, Gabriel explained, sitting heavily on the bench. 3 years as a combat medic taught me how to keep people alive in the worst conditions imaginable. And the praying? Gabriel smiled slightly. That came from my grandfather. He was a minister in a small town. Taught me that prayer isn't just about asking for things. It's about connecting to something larger than yourself, finding strength and peace, even when everything seems hopeless. Damien leaned against the lockers. I never thought about it that way before. Most people don't until they need it. They sat in companionable silence for a moment before Damien spoke again. We've been awful to you, haven't we? Gabriel shrugged. You didn't know me. That's no excuse. Maybe not. But it's human nature to fear what we don't understand, to mock what makes us uncomfortable. Gabriel tucked the cross into his pocket. I've never held it against any of you. Damien looked at him with new respect. How? If someone had treated me the way we treated you, I'd have been plotting revenge, not praying for them. Gabriel stood, gathering his belongings. My grandfather had another saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Buddy, forgiveness isn't about excusing behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. Before Damien could respond, Roman appeared in the doorway. We're finished out there, he said. Ready to lock up whenever you are. Gabriel nodded, following them back into the main area of the lounge. The tables had been cleared, the floors swept, the bar wiped down. It looked as if nothing extraordinary had happened, except for the subtle change in how the 4 other men carried themselves around Gabriel. As they exited into the cool night air, the storm had passed completely, leaving behind a washed-clean feeling and the scent of rain-soaked pavement. Stars peeked through breaks in the retreating clouds, and the city seemed unusually quiet. Anyone want to grab a drink somewhere else? Christopher suggested. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not ready to go home yet. There's a diner around the corner that should still be open, Adriel said. Not alcohol, but decent coffee and pie. The others agreed, then looked expectantly at Gabriel. "You'll join us, won't you?" Roman asked, a note of uncertainty in his voice, as if expecting rejection. Gabriel hesitated, surprised by the invitation. Then he smiled. "I'd like that." They walked together through the damp streets, 5 figures moving in unexpected harmony. At the diner, they claimed a corner booth and ordered coffee all around, plus a slice of apple pie for each of them. "To Mr. Lawrence's recovery," Roman proposed, raising his coffee mug, "and to Gabriel," Christopher added, "for showing us what it means to live your faith instead of just talking about it." Gabriel felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee spreading through his chest. "To new beginnings," he suggested. They clinked mugs awkwardly, then fell into easy conversation that lasted until the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. They parted ways with promises to meet before their shift the next day, the mockery and division of the past, replaced by something that, while not yet friendship, held the potential to grow into it. Gabriel walked the 7 blocks to his apartment, tired but at peace. As he climbed the 3 flights of stairs to his door, his phone chimed with a text message. It was from an unknown number. "Surgery successful. Mr. Lawrence asking for you. Come at 10 Siltrax. Head nurse, City General." Gabriel sent a brief acknowledgement, then entered his small but tidy apartment. He placed his wooden cross on the simple shelf beside his bed, next to his grandfather's Bible and a photograph of his family. He showered quickly, then knelt beside his bed for his morning prayers, adding special thanks for the events of the night and prayers for Mr. Lawrence's continued recovery. As the sun rose fully, he climbed into bed, exhausted but fulfilled in a way he hadn't experienced since his days of saving lives on distant battlefields. When he awoke and arrived at the hospital later that morning, Gabriel found Mr. Lawrence sitting up in bed, color returned to his face and a thoughtful expression in his eyes. "The doctors say I should have died last night," the owner said without preamble. "They call it a miracle that I survived long enough to get here." Gabriel took a seat in the visitor's chair. "I'm just glad you're recovering, sir." "Call me Thomas," Mr. Lawrence insisted. "After what we went through together, formality seems ridiculous." He studied Gabriel intently. "The others told me everything while you were getting some rest, about how they've treated you, about your background, about your prayers." Gabriel remained silent, unsure where this was heading. "I've never been a religious man," Thomas continued. "Built my business on hard work and ruthless efficiency. Never saw the need for anything spiritual." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But when I was lying on that table, barely conscious, I heard your prayer, and I felt something, a presence, a peace I can't explain." "God works in mysterious ways," Gabriel said quietly. Thomas nodded slowly. "So they say." He shifted in the bed, wincing slightly. "I've been doing some thinking about my life, about my priorities, and about Theophilus." "Your lounge? Did you know what the name means?" Thomas asked. Gabriel nodded. "Lover of God," or "friend of God," from the Greek. Thomas looked surprised. "You know Greek?" "Just some terminology. My grandfather taught me bits and pieces related to Scripture." "Well, the irony isn't lost on me now," Thomas said with a dry chuckle. "I named my most exclusive establishment after a biblical concept without having any real understanding of it. Chose it because it sounded sophisticated, exotic." He reached for a cup of water on his bedside table. Gabriel handed it to him, their fingers briefly touching in the exchange. "I want to make some changes," Thomas announced after taking a sip, "to the lounge, to how we operate, and I want your help." "Sir, Thomas, I'm just a waiter," Gabriel reminded him. "No, you're much more than that. You're exactly the person I need." Thomas set the cup down decisively. "I'm promoting you to manager." Gabriel blinked in surprise. "What? But Roman has seniority, and Christopher has more experience with the business side, and both of them recommended you for the position when they visited earlier," Thomas interrupted. said they couldn't think of anyone better suited to help me transform Theophilus into something meaningful. Gabriel sat back, speechless. "Don't look so shocked," Thomas continued. "Near-death experiences have a way of clarifying priorities. I've spent years building a business that caters to wealth and excess. Maybe it's time to create something that nurtures the spirit as well. What exactly are you proposing?" Thomas's eyes lit up with new purpose. "A place that maintains its elegance but loses its exclusivity, where good food and drink bring people together instead of separating them by status, where staff are valued for their character, not just their ability to project an image." He leaned forward eagerly. "And I want to start a foundation, using a percentage of our profits to support veterans and faith-based community initiatives." Gabriel couldn't help but smile at the man's enthusiasm. "That's quite a vision. Is it one you'd be willing to help build?" Thomas asked, suddenly vulnerable. "I don't know the first thing about authentic faith or community service. I need someone who lives those values, not just talks about them." Gabriel considered the offer, thinking of his grandfather's often repeated wisdom. Sometimes God places you exactly where you need to be, not where you expected to be. "Yes," he said finally, "I'd be honored to help." Relief washed over Thomas's face. "Good. We'll start as soon as I'm released from this place. The doctors say it could be as early as next week, barring complications." They spent the next hour discussing ideas and possibilities, the seeds of something new taking root between them. When a nurse finally came to shoo Gabriel out, insisting that Thomas needed rest, both men were reluctant to end the conversation. At the door, Gabriel paused. "One question: why me? You barely knew I existed before last night." Thomas smiled thoughtfully. "Sometimes you need to come close to losing everything to recognize what truly matters. I saw how you treated people who had mocked you. I heard how you prayed, not just for me, but with genuine concern for everyone in that room." He shrugged slightly. "If that's not the kind of character I want associated with my business going forward, I don't know what is." Gabriel nodded, humbled. "Thank you, I'll see you soon." Duh. As he walked through the hospital corridors toward the exit, Gabriel's phone buzzed with messages from his new colleagues, checking on him, asking about Thomas, suggesting they meet before their shift that evening. The same people who had once isolated him were now reaching out, bridges being built where walls had stood. Outside, the city gleamed in the aftermath of the storm, buildings reflecting sunlight from windows washed clean by rain. Gabriel paused on the hospital steps, breathing deeply of the fresh air. His grandfather had been right, as usual. Faith wasn't just about enduring hardship with patience. It was about recognizing opportunities for grace in unexpected places, about seeing the potential for transformation even in moments of crisis. And sometimes it was about standing firm in your beliefs until others could see their value for themselves. Gabriel touched the cross in his pocket and smiled. Then he descended the steps and walked into the bright morning, toward a future suddenly rich with new possibility.